welcome back to So There I Was. I'm a guest again, or host again, I guess. I am the host, Travis Womack. Our guest today is a very special, very unique guest, Kelley Jensen. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at Brain Performance Technologies and one of the lead advocates for what's called TMI or TMS, Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation. It's a big word for me. I'm a math major, so we'll figure that out. And she's also a very personal for her as an autistic parent, and she is also the host of her own podcast, which I'm sure we'll hear more about. But Kelley, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to
Oh,
be here. And I love your podcast. It's wonderful.
I appreciate that. It's it's morphed into a wild um, couple of branches that I never expected it to, and here we are now having a discussion about magnetic brain stimulation and stuff. But um I've kind of got a list of an idea of where to start. And normally with my
Okay.
guests, I'll start with, hey, tell me about why you joined and when you joined, but you didn't join. So that's a different topic, but kind of where did you get in, obviously your son's autistic and let's kind of start there and kind of get into what TMS is.
Yeah. So, yes, I have no background with military. I have had the unique pleasure of getting to know you all, getting to know the communities in the last 2 years. It's been the honor of my life. Um, and autism prepared me for it in a very roundabout way. I am a parent of a 26-year-old autistic son, and when he was 22, he had aged out of the school system, and he had, with that, an uptick in his anxiety and his rigidity, the rigidity of autism.
Hmm.
And I had him on all kinds of medication that was not effective. He was developing a hoarding problem. He was having meltdowns every day over very little things that all had to do with his stuff. And I recognized that as a symptom of OCD. And I was desperate to help him. And I said, well, forget about autism. What treatments are available for OCD? So I Googled treatments for OCD, as you know, you do in the middle of the night when you can't
Right.
sleep. And I found transcranial magnetic stimulation is approved for OCD. And I said, well, what's that? What's transcranial magnetic stimulation? And I read a little bit more about it. And can autistic people do transcranial magnetic stimulation? Of course they can. There's a brand of transcranial magnetic stimulation called MERT that is popular in the community. Any MERT providers in my area, because I wanted clinicians that were familiar with autism and autistic people who, as you know, operate in a little different, and,
Yeah.
and going to be sitting there 5 days a week for having somebody put a magnet on his forehead. I needed somebody that understood autism. And so I found a practitioner, a doctor about an hour from us that did the treatment. And we did it. I told my husband, this is it. We're doing this. I'm trying this. I don't care. And it was awesome. It was by far the most consequential intervention we've ever done for him. It stopped the hoarding altogether,
Wow, that's crazy.
probably about week 4. So it's a 6-week treatment course, and it stopped his hoarding about week 4, and he just kept, his mood kept improving.
Hmm.
Um, and then at the end of the 6 weeks, from 6 weeks after, after the treatment, we really started seeing huge leaps and bounds in his speech, which was unusual because that wasn't why we did it. And I wasn't planning on, I would have never done treatment just to improve his speech. I had made peace with the way he spoke, which was very little,
Which is a
very,
tough bridge to cross as a
yeah,
parent.
but I had made peace with it a long time ago.
Yeah.
He could read basic words. He could tell me where it hurts, and I wasn't going to be greedy, right? So we had a shorthand for feelings because we did something called the zones of regulations for many years. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
I've
but
heard that.
it is like where you assign a color to the way you feel. You're mad, you're red. And
Yeah.
so he
Oh,
had some
my
pretty
son
good.
he still does baby
So,
more. I'm like,
yeah. So we had all these crazy shorthands. I felt pretty confident that we could get through all that. And I had given up on speech therapy when the insurance stopped paying for it. So, but he really started speaking much more clearly, much more succinctly, much more intentionally, and I think it was just because he was so much less anxious. So all of that language that was bubbling up in his head, he could process and spit out. And I mean, the rest is history. My husband was thrilled. I was thrilled. We called the doctor and said, how can we be involved in this? We really want parents to know about this. as another tool in the box of
Hmm.
autism interventions. And we kicked around ideas for a long time with the doctor, and I at one point I was just going to advocate for him and talk to interested parents. But then one day he said, I just really don't want to do payroll. I don't want to market. I don't know anything about business administration. I hate it. I've been an emergency room doctor my whole life, and all I want to do is talk to patients. And he wanted to get into speaking to veterans and active duty members of the military because this treatment is very effective for a lot of the things that happen to our soldiers. And he had no time because he was so overwhelmed with running the business. And so what we finally came up with was being a medical service organization for him, and Brain Performance Technologies was born. And in the last 2.5 years, we have really grown the community and become TRICARE appointed providers and introduced TMS to the military community, in addition to the autism community.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Well, I think the question that I mean anybody listening would immediately want to ask is, what is it? What is it? If I'm a fifth grader, what is the easy
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
understand what does it do?
It's brain stimulation. So we
Hmm.
call it brain care. So it stimulates the brain. It's under the umbrella of neuromodulation. Neuromodulation is treatment of nerve activity. And so it is a safe and effective way to deliver a magnetic pulse to the brain to stimulate the brain. And it increases connectivity and functionality of the neural pathways in the brain that we use to operate. So it's that simple. It is a magnetic pulse that is on your forehead. They call it 30 pulses. 30 this is the general version of it. 30 pulses on your forehead 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And that's the basic treatment at 10 hertz. So it goes about 10 hertz fast.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it really does stimulate the brain. Now, as it was approved for depression in those ages 18 and up in 2008. And then the age requirement dropped to 15 for those diagnosed with depression in 2021, I believe 2020,
Post
2021, I
COVID
believe.
depression went
So
up, so
it's
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's drug free, non-invasive, and effective.
Yeah,
So it is something that everybody's motivated for young people to have access to, other than medications.
yeah,
So um, it is also FDA approved for smoking cessation. It is FDA approved for migraines. It is FDA approved for depression, obviously, and OCD. But depression is the diagnosis that enjoys the widest range of insurance coverage. And
interesting.
depression and standard TMS is what TRICARE pays for. So that's what we do. There are other protocols. They are all actively being studied for different mental health conditions,
Hmm.
and they're all thought to be effective for mental health conditions. It's generally well tolerated, and it's just the third mental health treatment that people don't know about.
Right. That's kind of what I was, there's knowledge about it. One thing that, what have y'all kind of understood is, like, I call it social pushback, because there's medical practice for so long has been like, hey, this is the lane, stay in this lane.
Yeah,
And then anytime you try to
yeah,
do anything off of it, your doctors predominantly will be like, oh, that doesn't work, And I remember very well, just not to bring up shots, it's always vaccines are always a weird thing, but my son, when he was one, we had to give him, 1-year-old shots and stuff. And I'm not anti-vax. I'm just anti all the vax at one time, you know.
mhm,
And he wanted to give it like 9. And I was like, no, we can space these out, do one, we'll wait a week or two. Because if he has a reaction of any sort, we don't know which one it was, if it's an allergy or anything. And I'll never forget that pediatrician told me, he's like, oh, there's these studies that the human body can take up to like 2,000 vaccines at one time. There's no reactions. I'm like, hey doc, did they do that test on your kid?
yeah.
And he's like, you got 2 little girls, And he's like, no. I was like, then shut up. Like, I just want to I'm not anti get the shots. I just want to space them out because my son was a micro preemie. And I'm like, he's little. Like, he's a 1-year old who's like 6 pounds because he's born
Right.
so early. That's a lot for his little body to take. He's already had a massive surgery, and a diaphragmatic hernia. It's like let the kid just kind of work on it, and stuff. So, and he did, and he just didn't want to do 50, the 9 office calls to get all the shots. But, so I think I've always dealt with that from the early days of being a parent. And so as a parent, just as an adult, you know, I mentioned to you before we hit record, my son's he does THC. Texas has the compassionate program, which is fantastic. Um, and the results from that, as far as his behavior, is like,
Mhm.
I wish I could type a full expose of the drastic difference in just his calmness. You
Yeah,
know,
that's awesome.
it's insane. Now
Yeah.
his language has gone up a little bit. Not sure if that's the THC or if that's the um just growing up a little bit, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But like as a parent, an autistic parent especially, you see one thing, you're like, what did we do different? What was it?
So how do I get more of that? Give me
Like
more
you're
of
just
that.
like he likes
Yeah.
that salt. Get more of the
Yeah.
salt. you know.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head with anxiety. I don't think that at clinicians, I don't think that even parents, teachers, people who are around autistic people every day, I don't think that we really grasp the level of anxiety that our kids have. It's
Mhm.
got to be so hard to know you're different. And with my son, I think he just hit a wall of, or he just couldn't handle his anxiety anymore. And what anything you can do to address it, you should do. That's my opinion, because anxiety can be crippling. I saw that, every
Oh yeah.
day with my child, and it came in waves. But the difference between any of us, we can certainly relate to that. When you are feeling anxious, the difference in everything you do and every decision you make is affected, right?
Hmm.
So your very behavior, your ability to sleep, all of it is affected by how anxious you are. So I'm not saying that OCD is caused by anxiety, but in my case, it was something I tried. The trial and error of autism. That's what parents are faced with a lot of times, and I tried it with
Yeah.
him, and it was an immediate success. So
Yeah.
I'm here now because of it. Um, I speak to people who have served every day, and you know, this is something that TMS is something that speaks to them, because it is drug free, and it
Hmm.
is time spent working on the brain, and it's you guys go through a lot
Yeah.
of physicality, right? A lot of boom boom, a lot of training exercises, and those are concussions, and multiple
Oh yeah.
concussions are known to cause mental health conditions.
Oh yeah. I
So
there was a study I read through. It was University of Pennsylvania did it, which they are. I think they spend more time studying the brain than any other college in the country. you know, but they had one. It was completely unrelated to this directly, but it was about um, drugs, like actual like cocaine or
yeah.
extreme drugs, and if someone's brain not on drugs, someone's brain on drugs, and like you can see the little scan, you're like, good gosh, and then they were doing the study on what was the guy's name? My brain just turned off. Anyways, but it was actually oddly enough about men's brains that are watching adult films, and it was your brain was more healthy doing cocaine than watching adult films, and
Wow.
it was remarkable. He has all these scans and stuff of that, and I would love to be a part of. I wish they would get like, hey, here's 100 infantrymen before the week they go into basic training, and do a scan of their brain before, and then do it right after basic training, and then do it like right after airborne school, and then if they stay in, do it like 3 years later, and just kind of you can see that progression, because I have no doubt you're right, is that I've been hit in the head more times than I can remember. And,
Mm.
I've jumped out of a plane 23 times, and I'm 6'4". I do not fall slowly. It is, and I don't fall correctly all the time either. So it's a lot of feet, head impact. My body somehow misses the ground. And, between explosions and deployments and stuff, I think it'd be a phenomenal study. It kind of intrigues me to find somebody who's willing to do that. I'll volunteer the scan on my head. It's already bald, so it's an easy scan. Um, but what have you seen in your practice and work with veterans with PTSD? What are some symptoms that they should hey, this is something I'm having, and then I did this treatment, and then now I don't have this.
Sure, sure. So many we have treated many people. We have 3 clinics, and then we are a part of an affiliate. The MERT or is an affiliation of clinics, and then we also offer an accelerated version of TMS called Saint, and that we are affiliated with clinics through that. And so through all networking with all of these different providers, we have seen a lot. And I would tell you the first thing is that these guys and gals start sleeping better. So chronic
Okay.
insomnia is a thing, right?
Oh
It
yeah.
is, I think a thing for the general culture, but it is particularly difficult for those who have struggled with PTSD, with depression, with transitioning from military life to civilian life. Sleep is hard to come by.
Yeah.
And almost universally, people start sleeping better. And then once you start sleeping better, you generally feel better. I mean,
Yeah.
the body functioning without sleep is not functioning at its best. Uh, and then the weight of depression lifts, and it lifts slowly. And there is a little bit of a challenge to encourage people to stick out the 6 week program, because the TMS that's paid
Right.
for by insurance takes about 6 weeks. So you get kind of a burst of feeling good, and then you kind of get a little slump as the brain is working its magic and is being stimulated. And people kind of like, oh, why am I bothering doing this? And then usually somewhere between week 4 and 5 they start feeling good again, and then treatment ends about 6 weeks, and then after that they do great, and they feel great, they feel light, they feel happy, they're sleeping. And at that time, we really encourage them to re-engage therapy, to re-engage talking about things that have happened to them. And what people tell me is they tell me that they're excited to do that for the first time. And that's probably the biggest
Wow,
difference,
that's
is that
interesting
they
feedback.
feel like talking. They feel like getting a new habit. They feel like changing things up. And I think that is the weight of depression lifted, right? So
Hmm.
you're not kind of stuck. They don't feel stuck, and so they start enjoying the self-examination that comes with therapeutic, talk therapies, of all kinds. That there's different modalities of talk therapy,
Absolutely.
and they do great. By and large, they do really, really well with this treatment, and it kickstarts a mental health journey. Some folks, so insurance will cover it every 6 months. So
That was
some
my next
folks
question: is what is the
need,
repeat of it?
yeah. So some people don't need treatment ever again. Some people need it they start to feel a dip about 6 months in. Some people last a year. Some people just do it every year as a precautionary measure so that they can stay off of antidepressants.
Just
Um,
recalibrate.
because they like that.
Yeah.
All of the medication you take has side effects.
Yeah.
So it is very personalized to the way your brain responds to treatment.
Okay.
But I
Th-
encourage everybody to look into it. I encourage everybody that's not sleeping, that is not eating well, that is having ruminating thoughts, to go
Start.
talk to somebody and look at every single tool in the toolbox: medication, therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation. Look at it all, and
Yeah.
maybe don't try it all at once, but maybe try it all,
Yeah.
because that's
that's
really
that's
what
the
it
hard
takes
part.
to
You
be
can't do it all at
successful,
once.
right?
You don't know what worked. you know.
Yeah,
What all
yeah.
is there, aside from talking to your doctor and maybe a referral or whatever, but is there any scans required, or what's the pre
Sure.
part of it?
So regular TMS, to be covered by insurance, requires you to have the diagnosis of depression, and you get a diagnosis of depression either from a primary care physician or from a
Psychologist.
psychiatrist, and
Hmm.
you do that by filling out questionnaires and
Right.
having an assessment with them. And uh, generally, they like you to try medication first. Like you said, we don't try everything all at once. So try
Right.
medication first. If it doesn't work, though a lot of times people have already had medication, you know, and it hasn't worked very well. So
Hmm.
any medications you had, that's part of the assessment. You do a complete history, um, and then the referring psychiatrist would be the one to prescribe TMS. There's not a lot of psychiatrists that prescribe it. They're called interventional psychiatrists, and they are versed in medication, TMS, and the fast-acting medications that you might have heard about. Ketamine, Spravato.
Hmm.
These things, they're fast-acting drugs. So you would be looking for an interventional psychiatrist to help you prescribe
So
that.
your primary doctor can't do
But
it, or they can.
your primary care doctor can prescribe you SSRIs, regular medication. They can also diagnose you with depression,
Gotcha.
but if you tell your primary care doctor that you would like to try TMS, which your primary care doctor should be supportive of, he'll probably have a psychiatrist write you a script for it.
Co-sign it, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of had
There
that with
are
my
some
son. He'll do refills for my son's medications, but he's like, I don't change them.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and yeah, that does require a specialist. There are some contraindications. It's a magnet, so people who generally have metal in their body, a pacemaker, who have active seizure disorder. There's a list of
right,
contraindications. So that's something that the
piercings.
piercings. You just take them out, right? If you can take them
Right.
out during the
Just don't
treatment.
forget about them.
Yeah, I know. But those are the things that the psychiatrist would go through with you. It is a useful tool to have in
Yeah.
the toolbox. I can't stress that enough. So there is the regular TMS, traditional TMS, the one that was approved in 2008. But as TMS has evolved, as neuroscientists keep studying these modalities, newer treatments have become available. MERT, magnetic e-resonance therapy, is one of those that is not covered by insurance, but it is popular in the autism community. That's the one that I did for my son, and it is being studied for PTSD. The team that has been studying it for PTSD has finished a clinical trial. I think I sent that to you
Yeah, you
prior
did.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is definitely something. It's been completed, and it's in the pipeline. So it is definitely something to keep your eyes on, and I will keep you updated because it is going to be the next treatment for PTSD,
That's
which is
awesome.
really
You,
important.
you mentioned,
So that's
sorry,
MERT,
go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
and then there is a newer version that was developed at Stanford. Stanford has a brain stimulation laboratory, uh, and they have developed a accelerated version of TMS. It's called SAINT, Stanford Accelerated Intelligent Neuromodulation Therapy, and it is 10 treatments a day for 5 days.
Wow.
I know. MERT requires an EEG as a diagnostic, because it's a personalized treatment protocol. So if you do MERT, you have EEGs regularly throughout the course of treatment. SAINT requires a functional MRI. Functional MRIs measure brain flow.
Hmm.
So before you would start your 5-day treatment, you would have to have a functional MRI. And it is, 5 days a week, 5 days, 10 times a day. They do it at the start of every hour, and it's very intense.
Yeah.
It's very effective for suicidal ideation. It is only covered by policy by one insurance carrier as of right now, but there are single case agreements for the other insurance carriers,
Yeah.
including some TRICARE patients. It is a highly effective
That's
treatment.
fascinating. I
It is
mean,
fascinating.
the idea of, I mean, as a person who values my time, it's like I can give up a week. I can do
Yeah,
that, and
yeah,
just the hotel part of that would be an interesting thing in the meals, but like just to do it and be done, is a that's awesome, and if
yeah,
they can, I'd love to
yeah.
see the
And
results of that.
people do Airbnb. We have in our
Oh
clinic,
yeah,
we have a hotel that's close by that people can walk to. They like that. Um, But you're right. There is something about it's almost like an intensive outpatient treatment, right? You
yeah,
go for a week, you get it done. Uh, it's intense though, and I will tell you that the first treatment is the top of the hour every hour
yeah. 10 hours.
5 days straight,
That's
10 times a
crazy.
day, and afterwards people are they're
Yeah,
really
oh yeah,
tired,
your brains are like,
and
I want to go to sleep.
they pretty much just sleep or kind of maybe stare at a television, but
Yeah,
I more often than not we have people asleep.
that's
uh
that's
yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy, but it's effective and it's fascinating to watch, and you know it's because it's accelerated, you see that dip that I described in
Hmm.
traditional TMS. You see it about day 2,
Right.
and people get kind of really irritable, and then that lifts about day 3, and so Monday kind of cranky, irritable,
Yeah.
not happy. Tuesday cranky, irritable, not happy, and then somewhere around Wednesday, it's kind of big day.
Yeah.
They kind of want to order lunch. They're feeling
Tuesday, you're Lieutenant Dan. You don't want ice cream. I get it. No.
so yeah.
I find that you mentioned that the effect of that for suicidal ideations. It sounds like could be a very interesting intervention. You know,
Yes.
things as a
So
commander.
Stanford's incredible. Yeah, Stanford is an incredible place, and they do incredible work there. They patented Saint, and they licensed it to a company called Magnus Medical. So if it's something that appeals to you,
Yeah,
um, again, insurance coverage is still wonky,
limitable.
but
Right.
getting better by the day. So keep pin if you need insurance coverage for it, you put pin in, or you reach out and you keep reaching out. That's my
Yeah.
suggestion. If you are a person that sometimes people who are depressed are unable to advocate for themselves, and so maybe it's a spouse or a
Yeah.
sister or a mother or father that are advocating. So keep an eye out for it. But
Yeah.
it's
That's great.
licensed through a company called Magnus Medical, and their providers are listed on Magnus's
Yeah.
website. It is at a lot of teaching hospitals where it does enjoy Medicare coverage through a hospital. So if
Interesting.
you have Medicare, you can get it through a hospital.
Well, it makes me
And
think
I
of a
encourage
question.
everybody to look into it.
Back to TMS a little bit though. I know we hit a lot about insurance and FDA approved for all that stuff. Is there an out of pocket option?
It just depends on your insurance plan. So, some people have a copay every day, some people don't. Sometimes some insurance carriers waive the
No, no,
copays,
I'm
but
sorry.
then you
Like how does kind of like if I wanted to come to your clinic and just do
oh,
I do that?
sure. Well, we do everything we can to get people covered
Right, right, right.
for by their insurance. And if we can't, the out-of-pocket charge for Saint is generally about 19,000. The out-of-pocket cost for it's not covered for autism. So our parents that are paying for it for their children,
Hmm.
the general cost is somewhere between $11,000 and $13,000.
For
So
Saint.
it's about $400. No, that's for Merck for autism. For
Okay, okay.
Saint, it's about nineteen thousand
Yeah.
dollars out
What
of
about
pocket.
TMS? Is there a cost for it?
TMS, I mean, I would encourage
Ish.
everybody to try to get covered because
Right,
it's
right, right.
generally covered by insurance, but the out-of-pocket cost would be about $12,000 as well.
Okay.
Um, it's not that TMS is not effective for suicidal ideation. It totally is. It's just that it's slower,
Time.
right?
Yeah.
So this is accelerated. You are taking a week off work. You are taking a week to focus on getting
Hmm.
better, and you are doing these treatments back to back. And so the progress that you would get in the 6-week treatment course, you're getting over the
A lot
course of a
faster.
week.
Which
So
is beneficial if you can find a place that locally that does that. You can just give up the week, or
yes,
if you have to fly, maybe. But you can. The 6 weeks is like, yeah, I live in Dallas. People, oh, you live in Dallas. And just go to them like, have you ever driven in Dallas?
yeah,
like 10 miles is a long freaking way
it
around here.
is, right?
So
Well,
like having to drive every single day, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Time. There's a multiple
yes.
time commitment.
Yes, but my suggestion to anybody that's listening to that is uh, do it anyway. It
Oh yeah,
is just going to
absolutely,
help you. First of all,
absolutely.
we have people, you know, people who are doing TMS. There's something about coming to a clinic and being taken care of that also lifts your spirits. I
Hmm.
think we've all kind of gotten away from, we're all moving so fast and everything is accelerated and we're on our phones and we're not talking to one another. Um, but
Yeah,
there's something about good old fashioned sitting in a chair and being taken care of
yeah,
that keeps you coming back. And the conversations that happen between the neurotechs and the
yeah,
patient is that'll keep you coming back for more.
yeah. How long does the treatment last? This one, like each
Oh,
time.
yeah, great question. So it lasts about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Sometimes if we're treating autistic people, um, they can take a little bit longer.
They move.
They move. Yes, the little children are, the neurotechs have all of these, great bells and whistles to keep them still
Hmm.
while they are having the magnet on their head. But it's pretty cute to watch, actually.
Yeah.
The kids are just really incredibly sweet, and
That very
my
thing
favorite
right
time of
there.
year is when summer rolls around, and because it's a very popular thing to do in the summertime, right?
Hmm.
Because kids are
You
off
have
at
time.
school, yeah, and they're just so darling.
Yeah, I said that's a challenge with my son for sure. Is like just going to the dentist. I'm like, let me get this straight. You and me, him to lay still, and you're gonna put metal in his mouth. All right,
Uh,
good luck. You
yeah,
know,
I know.
it's
I know, gosh.
oh,
Oh my God.
I'm up to a minute 20 on his Sonicare, so it's taking me 15 years to get to a minute 20 to brush his teeth. So
Well, kudos to you though. I mean, that's pretty good,
yeah,
actually. That's fantastic. And a Sonicare, that's amazing.
yeah, it's been a journey. Now he just now if I can get him to stop screwing with his toothpaste, we'll be there. I walk in the other day, I'm like, are we doing toothpaste art? What are you doing? It was
Oh my,
everywhere. It was everywhere.
oh, I know. My son does that too. Oh my God. And he likes to have all of the different flavored toothpaste.
Yeah,
He hates my toothpaste because he says it doesn't taste, it's like, lucky. He likes the kids ones that all taste like bubble gum and
yeah. Oh yeah.
so.
Once the sugary ones, I get it. You hit on something a while ago. I want to go back to on the PTSD thing about sleep because gosh, it's been almost 2 years now. I interviewed Dave Grossman. He's
Uh,
he was a uh, psychologist professor at West Point and lieutenant colonel. And he got out of the army after he retired, and he wrote a book called On Killing, which is a fantastic book. It's literally one of my top five out there about the psychological effect of taking someone's life, which is not this part, but in our episode, he talked about the importance of sleep and where suicide starts at lack of sleep and how your neural part of your body is when it's tired it makes bad decisions. You know. Yeah,
impulsive decisions.
you
Yeah.
know, and like you have the front of the cerebral cortex and all that stuff. You know, it's like your brain stop sign. It's the only way to, you know, it gets weaker and weaker the more tired you are. And I've always hit on that because my wife makes fun of me all the time. She's like, I am so jealous. You fall asleep in like 3 seconds. Like every night we go to bed and you know, kiss her good night and roll over. And she's like, hey, oh, you're already asleep. What the heck? You know, she's like, you're out. I mean, it's not like I'm a little bit, I am out. But I have an apnea machine, obviously, CPAP, and you know, and once you get past and you're wearing this weird, you know, tube on your head, it's, it's fantastic. And so we spent a lot of time talking about that. And I know a lot of veterans, like that's the biggest turnoff of like seeking apnea treatment because they're like, I don't want to get this Vader mask or the
Yeah.
nasal thing or whatever it is. But you know, there's
Yeah.
tons of options. But you know, I think this is a great thing to be informed about because there's another option that hey man, you can go to this clinic, you can do this thing for 6 weeks, and the result is you sleep better. You know?
Absolutely. Almost, I would say almost universally. And the autistic children too,
Yeah,
that the sleep in autism. I don't know how your son sleeps. My son always, knock on wood, slept very well. But there people come into this clinic and they're like, this child does not sleep.
yeah.
Or some of the people who have served come in, I haven't slept in 10 years, they tell me.
Hmm.
Um, and almost universally this helps. And you'll have to have it, like we talked about, you maybe having a doctor on to talk about the science behind it. And I
Yeah,
am not a neuroscientist, so I
absolutely.
can't tell. I won't attempt to tell you why. I'm sure it's very individualized for every single person, but it has to do with the brain's ability to turn itself on and turn itself off and
Right.
utilize brain waves in sync.
Yeah.
And that's as fancy as I'm going to get. I'm going to
Yeah.
let the neurologist explain
Well,
it to you
the
in
beauty of
more
it though
technical terms.
is like, I mean, there's a lot of things we don't understand, but
Yeah.
we know it works. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't mathematically know how a helicopter worked for a long time, but we knew it worked and we flew them. So
Yeah.
it's a true story. They actually didn't the mathematical
Yeah.
formula for how a helicopter works. They didn't prove it until like the 90s. You know,
Yeah.
but we've been flying them since the 60s. Like, you know, the cart got in front of the horse in that one. But I think it's fantastic idea to an alternative method to treat,
Yeah.
you know, and what stigmas are there out there that you've heard or, you know, of
That's a
people's
great
hesitation
question.
to come
Well,
in?
the number, I want to say before I say anything else, we are TRICARE providers in our clinics. Many of the clinics I work with are TRICARE providers, but you actually have the option of TMS through the VA. So if you get your services through the VA, you might have to advocate a little bit more for TMS. They don't have TMS machines in every single
Hmm.
VA clinic, but they do have them. So ask your doctor about it. The VA is very supportive of TMS for people who have served. Um,
That's
so
crazy to
that
know.
aside, the biggest stigma is, why haven't I heard of this? That's the
Yeah.
biggest stigma that I have. Why haven't I heard of this? Um, so there's a natural cynicism with that, right? And I'm frustrated by that too. When I first heard about it, when I Googled it, I couldn't believe that nobody had ever told me about it for my son. And I assume because they thought that it wasn't an option because it's not covered by insurance for autism. But I would have tried it if
Yeah.
somebody would have told me about it. But nobody told me about it. I didn't get a chance, right? And so that is what's changed my life. Is I want everybody to know about this. It might not be right for you. You might not be able to afford it. You might put a pin in it and try it later. But there's a difference between deciding I'm not going to try this now and not even knowing that it's available to you.
Yeah.
And that is what I fight every day. It has changed the course of my life because now all I want is for everybody to know about this. Um, and, largely it's because there hasn't been a big marketing push for it, right? We
Hmm.
learn about new advancements in medical care largely through a consumer network, largely through advertisements we see on TV, usually put out by a pharmaceutical company or through our doctors. And there hasn't been a whole cohesive marketing blitz all about TMS
Yeah.
until I got here. And so now I'm doing it one podcast at a time.
That's why you're a marketing officer.
But
I think that's a
yeah.
I do I joke. So I have migraines. They're awesome. No, they're terrible. And
Oh, oh,
there's alternative solutions, and good gosh,
yes.
medicines that were killing my kidneys. I was in
Uh-huh.
like late stage 2 kidney failure. I'm like, I am 35. So this is not good. So I knew that was not the right path. So I get Botox injections in my head.
Um,
That's why my forehead's so smooth. And
yeah.
but um, and it's like the idea of being a male and like saying I get Botox is like I have to like personally make that decision to cross that line. I did it years ago. I don't care anymore. But like there's a stigma with that
Yeah.
of either telling yourself or telling your spouse or telling your friends, or don't tell anybody, but you have to make that decision of like, hey, if this works, I need to go try it, you
Well,
know?
that's actually a perfect example. Botox is actually a perfect example of how marketing influences what we know about medicine, because
Yeah.
Botox actually didn't start as a treatment for wrinkles.
Nope.
Botox started as a migraine medication.
Exactly.
And they noticed that people that were doing Botox to control their migraines had no wrinkles.
Yeah.
And then the beauty industry hijacked Botox, and now
Yeah.
we think of it as something that is used to prevent wrinkles, but it is really, its origins are about migraines.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why no one's heard of TMS, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
battling. That's the stigma. And then I guess also a little bit of stigma is, it feels a little bit like hooey to people,
Yeah.
that like,
It's like the old copper
you can
bracelet,
tell something's going to happen.
you know?
Yeah, like, is this real? Like, but
Right.
I counter that pretty easily with these questions. One, would the insurance carriers pay for it if it was hooey? They don't pay for anything they don't have to. So obviously there's efficacy to it, or they wouldn't let you do
That's
it
a
if they didn't
very
let people
valid
do it.
point.
And the other thing is that sometimes cynicism is depression.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're cynical because we don't want to believe there's anything out there to help us. So don't let cynicism stand in your way of
Yeah.
doing something that might help you.
Well, there's also just a natural adversity to change.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the as the patient, there's that adverse of, well, I've always just taken medicine and I'll just keep doing that. I don't want to try something new, because if do I need to wing off my medicine first, which is actually a good question, before I do this. If I'm taking
Oh,
some
that is a good question.
pretty good controlled substances, is that something I need to do, or kind of stay on them while I'm
Yeah.
doing it, or
So great question. Both ways. It depends on how much time you have. It depends on, they don't want anybody struggling with suicidal ideation to
right?
take time to wean off medicine. They want you to get in there as fast as possible. Um, I can tell you for my son personally, what was advised is don't do anything different.
Hmm.
One, because when you're trying something new, the best way to see if it's working is
Control.
to do nothing else different, right?
Hmm.
So that's what I did for my son. I had him on 4 different classes of drugs. none of them were working. And then that it's quite common for people with autism. We tried the THC and that didn't work for him.
Yeah.
So then I was back to the regular medications they tend to prescribe autistic people. They weren't working, and I really wanted to try to wean him off of some of those medications. And after treatment, I started, and he's down to half the dose that he was on, and I'm
That's
thrilled.
great.
And he's probably always going to need the Zoloft. He's probably always going to
Right.
need the other one that he takes for impulsivity. But it's half the dose, and it's
Right.
working twice as well. And
Right.
so I'm thrilled. So, you know,
Well,
there's
I look at
balance,
that.
right?
That's huge because I, as we talked about again before I hit record, but I didn't say this then, but autistic parents, like I told you that there's an acceptance of like my kid's never moving out,
Yeah.
and there's that burden, but then there's also another burden that I've always dealt with, which is the realization of like the average age of an autistic person is like 37, like the max,
I know.
and
I know.
I was reading a deal from it was it a Harvard study I think it was, but it was talking about like majority of them pass in the start of their early death is kidney failure because they've been on
Yeah.
so many
So,
just powerful medicines at extreme doses. I mean, my
yeah.
son's on he takes 7 pills a day, and he's on the max of every single pill that he can take for his height and weight and yada yada yada. And as he gets bigger, those medicines have to get bigger, and you're just destroying the kidney who's just it's over there fighting for its life, and so I'm all about trying to find things that are, kind of cut that dose in half or get off of it, which would be fantastic, if it's
Yeah, I'm
appropriate,
thrilled. Yeah.
and so I think that's a great effect is if, and I think a lot of parents, are I think the one of the biggest things I've dealt with in the community, and I'm sure you can probably attest to this, is you just said like THC didn't work, right? And I said it did work, and I think parents naturally like, oh, I'm not trying that. It didn't work for my friend, or we did that. It didn't work, and then they just kind of badmouth options. Oh, you have to do
Yeah.
this. You have to do this medicine. If you don't do this, your kid will always be autistic. Oh, it cured our kid. And I'm like, autism isn't a disease. It doesn't.
Right.
You don't. And I always correct people all the time. I'm like, my son doesn't have autism. He is autistic.
Right.
and
Right.
and you'll understand like it's not a cold. It's not a
Yeah.
virus or a bacteria. It's his brain functions differently. And so
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest. We're our own worst enemy sometimes. With
Good
you
point.
know, and I don't take any offense. I'm like, dang, I wish it would have worked for your kid, to try THC because for me it was a very affordable method, and and it's worked great. And some things my son sleeps fantastic now that he's been on it, and I think there's the conversation within the community is you said your son did TMS and like started to talk. You weren't even looking for that, and it
Yeah.
happened. You
Yeah.
know, and I think there's the
So
own dialogue needs to be fixed. Sorry, go ahead.
it's so funny that you say that because I have my own podcast. It's called Refrigerator Mom, and it was born from I have a very good friend whose son is also autistic. He's but presents much differently than my son. But we have raised them together. We
Hmm.
were partners in figuring it all out, the trial and error of
Struggle's
autism
real.
uh, for over 20 years. And when I decided to start Brain Performance Technologies, she's an editor by trade, and so she was all in to try and help me, you know, create the website. And we were in my office editing our website, and a mom came in, and she had a daughter who had gone off to college, very bright young woman, and had a breakdown in college. She, just couldn't take the rigor and the pressure without any supports, and so they had to bring her home, and a late diagnosis of autism followed, and so she was
Hmm.
in the clinic, and she was doing treatment, and the mom came in and to introduce herself and to thank me, and she just totally fell apart. She was
Oh
racked with
man.
guilt, and how did I miss this? I just thought she was quirky, and what do I do now, and who do I help her become? And we sat with her for a really, really long time, and we just felt so bad for her, and it took us all back to those early days of, confusion and what you don't know, and what learning to live with what you don't know.
Right.
And she left, and we kind of looked at each other, and the Refrigerator Moms was born. And Refrigerator Moms is
Yeah.
a reference to, I don't know if you've ever heard the term Refrigerator Mom, but in the beginning days of autism,
All the pictures.
it was thought to be mom's fault,
Yeah.
that mom were a cold mother. And so if you took your child to a doctor to find out why they weren't talking, it was thought to be because you're a refrigerator mom, and you should let us raise your kid, and your kid was institutionalized for trying to get them help. And so
Yeah.
um, we decided to reclaim the name as a fierce advocacy, because that is really what the original refrigerator moms were doing. They were looking for help for their child.
Right.
So we call ourselves refrigerator moms, and we write papers about all topics related to autism. And one of our papers is called the Trientific Method, all about the trial and error of
Hmm.
what you think might work, what someone's told you, how to evaluate that, how to save money for that, all of the things. We call it the Trientific Method, but it's just one of many papers that we wrote specifically to help parents navigate all those conversations that can make your head spin.
Hmm. Well, you have that, and then you have the thousands of Facebook groups or whatever it is, and
Yeah,
there's so much good out there, good intention
yeah,
that gets overshadowed by just honestly one pessimistic person. Oh, that never works. That's
yeah,
huckapoo. You're like, no, it didn't work for you,
yeah,
and that's we I can go put dye in my beard. At the end of the day, it's still gray. It's
yeah.
just I'm just masking it, and versus doing a massive surgery to have hair. I mean, it can be bonkers, and I think parents don't understand, like it doesn't all have to be the same, and
Well, and it's not. I think that the
yeah,
prevailing thoughts now are that there's as many as four different kinds of autism.
yeah,
So four different causes of autism.
yeah.
So, that's sort of, I think that conversation is long overdue. And
Oh yeah,
it explains some of why this works for one and why this doesn't work for another. But until the medical community has a way to guide you into what will help your child the most and the
yeah,
first, and you're kind of on your own to figure it out, right?
yeah,
And the thing about TMS, and the thing I want everybody to know, is it's not a snake oil salesman. It's not the latest and greatest, ta-da. It's just another tool. It's another off-label
yeah,
use of a mental health treatment that
yeah,
is on label for some conditions.
yeah,
And a lot of autistic people also are diagnosed with depression. A lot of autistic people are given SSRIs. SSRIs are not approved for autism. They're approved for depression, but yet they are taken by autistic people regularly. So
yeah,
TMS is an off-label use of an on-label intervention, and I
yeah,
want everybody to know that. And questions of affordability are appropriate,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean that it is like something experimental. It is an off-label
Right.
use, on-label
Everything.
intervention.
Every
Yeah,
doctor will take a check straight up if you offer it, but they prefer the insurance.
right. Totally.
Yeah. So
Totally.
no one's gonna say you'll pay for MRI by yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I'm not gonna say no. What this may be a well, kind of a joke, but kind of half serious.
Yeah.
But what about parents? Because when you have autism kids, there's you want to treat anxiety, you want to treat depression, you want to treat for sleep or just OCD,
Yeah.
behavior, all those things. But all of those things that your kids are dealing with cause all those things in the parent, you know,
Oh,
you
oh,
know, because I
you are so
know
right. I mean,
I
it's
live
so
I live
right.
I live
It's
in a
so,
world of I'm very protective of my son. I think most autistic parents can relate to that phrase of you protect your kid. Not that other parents don't. I've got 5 kids, so I'm not speaking from ignorance here. But there's like I don't take my kid to a lot of things. My daughter's soccer games, like he's never gone because I'm not taking him to a field where there's I think the place here where we play think there's 35 soccer fields just in a row. I'm like, and there's soccer balls everywhere, and this kid collects balls for a living. So I'm like, no, this is gonna be awful, you know. So he's
oh,
never seen her play
oh,
soccer and never will, and
yeah.
I don't take him to like we went to Six Flags. Him and my daughter are both adopted through Gladney. out of Fort Worth, and which is right next to TCU. Your daughter may be aware of
Yeah.
that. And but they every year they rent out Six Flags
Okay.
for a 4 hour window where it's just every single parent there, every single family is all adopted in some way. It's a great, awesome thing. If you're in an adoption community, it's fantastic.
That's amazing.
There's no lines. You'd ride every ride. But I'm never taking him with me, even though he's the adopted kid, because there's stuffed animals everywhere, and he's got thousands of those things. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna fight this fight,
Oh my
you know.
gosh.
And so like and those are my scenarios. I'm sure you could probably go on for days about your son. Any parent can be like, oh my gosh, it's freaking pins. My kid has, it's just, we can't have, I mean, it's just always something
Oh
with
my,
something, and so there's this natural, like my anxiety of like, okay, we're going to try to go to Chewy's, get some, and let's bring the iPad. Okay,
yeah.
are the headphones charged? Is the Bluetooth working? Like you're just like the anxiety of the parent
Oh
is like
gosh.
way up here. We live in a realm, and is there a treatment for that? So you know,
Well, first of all, we call that hypervigilance. Your training in the military prepared you for it,
yeah,
right? Because
exactly.
hypervigilance about figuring out what scenario is going to come next. My son has all of the things that he loves stuffed animals, he loves pens, he loves balls. He's got all three of those, so they would get along great. Our children would get along.
It's so
Um,
common. It's so weird.
it's really funny. One time when he was little, I would have to hide the Sharpies. I
Oh
would hide the
gosh.
Sharpies because he had a thing for Sharpies and he knew the difference between a Sharpie and a washable marker and didn't want any of those were stupid, the washable markers. It had to be the Sharpie, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
of course there was stuff all over the wall. So I hid the Sharpies and my friend was looking for one. She came over to the house, she was looking for one, and I said, I had them hidden, I can't remember where. And she goes, let me just check. We found the room.
The,
She started
oh,
counting at 13. 13. She's like, I found 13 Sharpies in his room.
oh no, the phrase. I'm sorry, I'm crying. That's funny. No, the
No
phrase.
match. I was no match for him. No match. I was just no match.
So the other day, I have to tell you, this is funny. You said you can't remember where. So my wife, she loves M&Ms, so we buy the big bag, and it lasts a couple months. But my son is obsessed with chocolate. Like and he Hershey Kisses and Hershey the little Halloween ones and stuff. It's just straight crack to that kid. And but so she gets the M&Ms, and we have this little pantry in our kitchen, and it's just nothing that he wants is in there. We don't put any of
Yeah.
his foods. This is like rice-a-roni boxes and whatever. Then we have a coat closet in our laundry room that I converted into a secondary pantry, and I put a digital lock on it.
Yeah.
So it's where all the other kids can hide their, sun chips and whatever, goldfish, and leave them alone. And he hears that he hears the rattle of the doorknob of that thing, and he comes running from his room every single time a kid opens that. He's like, I want something in there, and they've all learned to lock it back, and it's the way we live. But anyway, she'd move this bag of M&Ms, and he'd find them, and he'll just eat a whole 1 pound bag in like 3 bites, and she hit him, and then she's like, I had a bag, I can't remember where I hid it,
Oh.
and so we're looking around all over the kitchen, behind pots and pans, we emptied the Tupperware thing, it's not back there. We're like, what in the heck? And I was randomly looking for something else in this other closet in this hallway, and I found this bag behind these coats where her winter coats are all kept. I'm like, found it. She's like, it's like 2 months ago. She couldn't. She's like, I didn't know where I put
Yeah.
that. So it's like you forget where the hiding places are so vast, you forget where it all was, and
Oh.
you live
I
in a
used to put the candy. I used to hide the candy in the peas. I put it in the freezer, and in a vegetable because I figured that. But then he got
yeah,
hip to that game,
yep.
and then I lost that.
All it takes is that
So
one time, and then forever they're looking in the
yeah.
peas, like just making sure that any Hershey
Oh,
Kisses in there.
like eyes in the back of his head, right?
So,
So anyway,
yeah, it's
but
it's fun.
to your point about what parents go through and how yes, that a depression diagnosis is probably definitely important, pertinent
Yeah,
for a parent of an autistic child, and
yeah.
I will tell you that in my brief career running the clinic, I have seen a lot of family treatments meaning
Yeah.
that we are treating mom or dad, and
Yeah.
we are also treating the child. And it's actually quite beautiful. We've had it several times, but we had a dad that had a young autistic child, and he did treatment. He started he really wanted to do it for his son, but he wanted to know what it felt like before he did it for his son, and he felt so much better afterwards that he would sit with his son in the chair, and he would do his treatment, and the son would sit on his lap, and then the son would do theirs. It was quite beautiful. They had like a
Yeah.
2 week overlap. Um, so yes, to your point, yes, you are probably in need of some brain
Yeah.
stimulation. Yes, you should have it. Yes, you should continue to be evaluated. Yes, should continue to find a support system. And one of the things that at the refrigerator moms that we stress over and over and over is that you got to have help. I mean,
Hmm.
it's so tempting not to, because they can be so difficult and they can be so quirky, and um, but they also are creatures of habit, right?
Hmm.
So you can, if you stick with it, you can coax that habit to where that's just, they know that they're home with the babysitter from this hour to this hour, and it's
Right.
consistent, and they can count on it. And if you got to bribe them a little bit in the beginning with those fancy M&Ms that you don't normally let them have,
Hmm.
then that's what you do, right? Like I
Right.
remember with my son, he was not allowed to have McDonald's unless the babysitter brought it over. So that's how I kind of got that
Oh, yeah.
organized, right? Then he wanted me to leave because he knew that that's what he was getting at
So,
McDonald's, and
mommy
so I
gone.
kind of
Mommy,
had to
leave.
outthink him. Yeah, totally.
That's
But
awesome.
um, the importance of establishing that, that respite for yourself. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's. I mean, I can't. Every parent should have that, of course. But
Yeah.
if you are the parent of an autistic child, it is an absolute necessity.
Yeah. I'll have to definitely. Being that I'm overlapping in the autistic parent category and the PTSD and the TBI, I'm actually very intrigued on this, and look forward to talking to your colleague up here in
Uh,
Dallas on
I
that. I think we'd have one, it's a great conversation, and two, I'm all for, I call it alternative treatments, non-standard or whatever just uninformed is probably the best word, and
Yeah.
of what's out there, because not to age either one of us, but I think we were both born before the internet was a thing, and and how it's shifted so much from being a parent in the 80s and 90s, and and you would go to the doctor and you just, hey, they said do this, so I do that, and the doctor's information was based off of whatever they got in pamphlets or books and the time they had to read those things, and
Yeah.
and to where, I remember when WebMD came out, it was the joke was like, well, oh, you WebMD'd it, so you're dying of cancer, because that's how every single one of them was like, "Da-da-da,"
Totally.
or cancer. It's like, I have a hangnail.
So
What in the world? How do this guy out of control
yeah.
real quick? Like it was the running joke, and then that's obviously gone, and then the internet's become what it is, and then AI and all these things, and you can type in a word and you can get almost too much information, and
Uh,
you,
yes.
you have it's gone from, we only have one or two decisions to make, and now we go into decision paralysis of,
Yeah.
the internet said I have 85 things and I'm probably going to die tomorrow. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and so it's the same thing for doctors, is like there's so many things now that's available that I think they fall in the same category of which one do I want to prescribe. And so I think
I think you're 100% right about that. I think that is why not enough doctors have heard of this. I try to talk to doctors all the time. I sent you the booklet that I wrote with my writing partner from the Refrigerator Moms. It's called Start Me Up. It is
yep,
all
I read
about
that.
non-invasive brain stimulations. And we wrote this paper because and it's in the vein of the way we write our refrigerator
Hmm.
papers, particularly for the citations, particularly because I wanted one place where the quintessential studies
Yeah.
are for TMS, where the dates of FDA
Hmm.
approval and the milestones, and I wanted it in one spot for people to be able to show a doctor,
Yeah.
um, and to
That's
help
real.
your doctor get up to
Right.
speed. Yeah, so I'm happy. I'm always happy to send this to anybody.
Yeah.
So they can
Is
reach
there
out to
is there
me
a link for
anytime. I
that?
have a
Do
No,
the
but I can give you one.
Yeah, please do.
I can give you my email and I send it to anybody that wants it
Yeah.
because I want it to go spread around the world.
Yeah, I'll definitely I'll put
I
it
have
in the description of the episode so people can download it from the
that would be
wherever they
great.
listen. So
I also have a section specifically to transcranial magnetic stimulation that, as it's been studied on children, and it does enjoy it doesn't enjoy FDA approval, but it does enjoy quite a bit of study.
yeah,
Um, to parents that are thinking about trying it for their child, I want them to be able to read that, and I make the argument that if you wait for it to be studied, your child's
you'll
childhood
miss
will
it.
expire.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, why would you do that? So of course there's the cost of money. I mean, there's the financial, you know, consideration, but that is just one consideration when you're evaluating things that, as you know,
yeah,
nothing is ever covered for autism. So,
yeah. It's
and then I wrote another paper that's called Psyched Out. And this is all about the shortage of psychiatry in this
mhm,
country. These numbers are actually quite shocking.
yeah,
When Juliana, that's my writing partner, and I were writing it, we were like, the numbers are crazy.
mhm,
Uh, but it attributes to why you haven't heard from this.
yeah,
Why you haven't heard of TMS. And so I have that available if you would like to just see some jaw dropping numbers. And in it, I make the argument that a general practitioner should be able to prescribe TMS. They're
mhm,
prescribing SSRIs, they're diagnosing depression. More primary care physicians prescribe psychotropic medications than psychiatrists,
yeah.
and yet they're not allowed to prescribe TMS for insurance coverage. I find it crazy.
Bonkers. Yeah,
Um, TRICARE and the VA are actually ahead of schedule on that. They allow primaries to do that, as well. They should, because
yeah.
it is needed.
Yeah, it's not a. I I went to the doctor a while back, and my wife made me. So you have to go. You're 45. I'm like, dang it, I know what's coming. I hate growing up. And it triggered like, oh, we haven't seen. We need to do an MRI on your neck. You haven't done that in, it's been years. You have to see, make sure all your screws are set and everything in your neck. And I'm like, oh crap. So that involves another doctor's appointment, involves another MRI. And all these things. It's just time.
Yeah,
And I think that's the biggest thing. People are they're they don't want to. Time is the most valuable asset we have, and whenever are going through things as an adult, or you have a kid who's autistic, the we measure time in so many different ways of how long does it take to get there, how long does it take, how's the treatment going to take, how many treatments have to do, and like as a parent, you're like, you go back to decision paralysis of like, they don't have the time for that.
yeah,
I need, you can't do this in like a one time with a drone, drop off at my
yeah,
house type thing. you know, like it can be overwhelming. So I think the idea of knowing um, where they're at, where the clinics are at that do TMS, I think
yeah.
is a great thing. And if I can help out with any kind of information of that, other than just this episode, by all means, let me know. And how
I
far do I
will.
need to drive as a parent, is because I
Yeah,
know very well, many years ago my son was, um gosh, was he, I think he was like 4, and we were living in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, or outside Lawton, and we were looking for certain treatment, and the nearest treatment clinic was, somehow it was in like Nebraska. And we're like, what in the world? Like, it was one of the few places in America that did it. And, and there was another one that was, in Germany, of all things. And it's like, this isn't that controversial. Like, why is nobody doing this? And so it kind of falls in that same thing of, one, the internet wasn't, the internet was a thing, but it wasn't advertised. Doctors just didn't,
yeah,
it's too much information. So I think there's, if you're listening and you're a soldier, a veteran, that's, we all struggle with sleep because we've slept in some weird places. Most of us have,
yeah,
and we've been exposed to a lot of stuff. And you make this crazy cocktail of life that can jack up your sleep. And I know for me, it was the most helpful thing was to figure out how to get to go to sleep and stay asleep. You know, Not
yeah.
permanently though. That's the wrong kind. And but because my wife at the time was like, it'd be 7 o'clock at night, 7:30. I'd be sitting in the chair and just talking to her, and I'd fall asleep mid sentence. Just, and she's like, we were talking, and then I wake up around like 9:30, the kids are asleep, she's pissed,
Yeah.
like she's done the dishes and in bedtime routine for three kids, and she's like, all right, you're a jerk. Like you don't understand. And we go to bed and be talking, and I'd fall asleep mid-sentence again and get up and repeat. And
Yeah.
it was not a good place to be in
No.
life or marriage or parenting or all the above. So I think
a-
pursuing a treatment is great.
Absolutely. And I can't, the hardest thing is to encourage people to try something new, right?
Yeah.
To what, or what you're doing is not working.
Hmm.
The realization that what I'm doing is not working and I should try something new because I have nothing to lose by
Right.
trying something new because what I'm doing is
Absolutely.
not working. Those are hard conversations. Those are mental health conversations, right? Those are
Hmm.
not even questions of the body function. These are just a mindset of,
Hmm.
have I just decided that I'm going to give up?
Right.
Or do I keep trying something new? Of course, the answer is you keep trying something new,
Yeah.
but that's a hard conversation to have when you just have given up.
Yeah. I know as a soldier, me myself being a paratrooper, and we have this one side of our psychosis is like just keep moving forward. If I'm as long as I'm moving forward, I'm doing okay. As long as I'm not falling back, and so we fall in this trap of I'm functional,
Yeah,
and like the term functional alcoholic comes from,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's like, hey, I can be, I don't drink, but I've been around a lot of paratroopers that are pretty good functional alcoholics, and you see them and they can do things, and so I think my wife asked me not long ago, she's like, how much pain do you think you're in? I'm like, I don't even know the answer to that question. I go to the doctor, well, how much pain are you in 1 to 10, and I'm like, I don't remember not being in pain. So my zero line is probably the normal person's like 3 or 4. And so the whole scale is shifted over. And so I think you take that into the same thing of seeking a new treatment. Like, well, whatever I'm doing, I'm still functional. I'm taking this medicine or I'm doing ABC, doesn't matter what it is. And so we're adversive to change because we're like, well, I'm already functional. I don't want to, the idea of being more functional is preposterous, you know,
yeah,
and I think
yeah,
that if there's a stigma of any treatment, it's that is,
yeah,
I don't want to have to go change this, and I don't want to wing off of medicine. I think we go back to that earlier, is a lot of those medicines require like a 3 week wing on and a 3 week
yeah,
taper off. It's like the fear of, if I taper off this and I'm doing this, then I go to this other treatment, and what if it doesn't work? You know, we had that voice is always in everybody's head. I wasted 3 or 4 weeks doing this, not to do 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm not going to be where I'm at right now for like 9 weeks. And I think that's a terrifying thing to like trust. Hey, this could work. And
totally.
and so I think that's the biggest. I know you're not a doctor, so you can't answer that directly, but I think that's the question to ask if you're a patient. That's
Yeah,
if you're on a medicine that requires tapering off, is definitely ask your doctor: is do I need to taper off before I do TMS,
yeah,
or can I do TMS and this at the same time? And and that, like you mentioned with your son, at least, is don't change anything else because
yeah,
you'll know. But I think that's probably the biggest fear.
yeah. I would say that I imagine and sort of conclude, but I'm not going to speak for
Yeah,
doctor personally, um, that they're going to tell you to wait until after treatment to try to wean yourself off.
yeah,
That would be
it
that's a
makes sense.
general prevalent thought.
Yeah,
Uh, and maybe it'll help you wean off. Maybe if
right.
if your drug of choice is alcohol, I hear this from a lot of patients that we've had, that it's that nighttime drinking,
Yeah,
that they take the nighttime drinking so they can pass out,
sleep.
and then it becomes a habit, and then
Hmm.
I don't know if this is true or anecdotal, but then I hear that sometimes if they're on base and they're super close to the weaponry and they have had too much to drink, does that contribute to impulsive decision making? I don't know, but drinking to fall asleep is probably not a good idea.
It's not a
And
good
probably
medicine.
something you should, yeah,
Yeah,
you're probably not getting the best night's sleep, and you're probably forming a
right.
habit that, you know, moves the line between habit and addiction
Yeah.
too quickly. So I would definitely have a conversation with
Well,
your
and also,
doctor about that.
I mean, it's an inhibit.
Yeah,
Inhibits. It's by design. That's what it's supposed to
yeah,
do, and so
right.
it inhibits your brain to make impulsive decisions. It makes and that
Yeah,
every single person I know that's has made that decision. It's you don't have to look very far to find alcohol.
yeah.
And very few. I've been around way more than I ever want to talk about, but you know, it's like 2% of people I know that have taken their life did it without alcohol around, and
Yeah.
so it's definitely a thing. So, well, this has been fantastic. I could ask questions for days, and then we could crash the internet because it won't load the file. It gets to be too big. Um, I love podcasts that do
I
that.
hope you will take me up. I hope you'll take me up on the offer to
Absolutely,
in addition to my colleague in Dallas, and he can speak. I know he participated in some of the PTSD study, so he
yeah,
can speak to that in much more clinical terms than I can. He treats a lot of autistic people. He was in the Air Force, so I think you'll have a lot to talk about. I think he'll be a fascinating guest and
yeah,
a great advocate for TMS
absolutely.
and MERS.
If I
Um,
can be a patient, I'm actually intrigued for myself just because I mean yeah, as you did your introduction at the very beginning, I'm like I check a lot of those boxes. you know, it's one being migraines, PTSD, TBI.
yeah.
I mean I've got sleep apnea and all these things. I'm just a walking basket case of brain things, but it's great. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts of just um, for anybody out there that's hesitant to do this?
um, Well, like I said, I understand cynicism, but cynicism does not your best life make. So sometimes you have to spit at cynicism and say, not today. I'm going to try something new. And also just keep it on your radar. You
Hmm.
don't have to do it right now, but now you know about it. Now you've been told about it, and you can't unknow about it. So
Hmm.
maybe one day you'll read my paper about it, and you'll look at the citations, and now you know. And at the very least, there's something else to try.
Yeah.
You haven't hit the end of the road.
I like it. I think that's a great start. Is be informed
Yep.
and then make an informed decision. So what works best for you is
Yep.
if you're a soldier or if you're an autistic parent, by all means, add it to the toolkit. And if it doesn't work for you, fine, but don't down it to the next parent. Let them know there's other options as well, because that's we are
Yep.
our own worst enemy
Absolutely.
in that community. So, but well, Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been fantastic, and
I appreciate your
I
time.
was when I got notified of you want to be a guest, I was like, well, it's completely different. It could be a lot of fun, and this has been great. And I know a lot of people that could definitely benefit from an option other than alcohol or some really strong drugs. So,
Yeah.
and I think there's better choices out there. So, but if you're listening, by all means, give it a good Google search. It's transcranial magnetic stimulation, and do some
Yeah.
reading. I'm sure
And
you'll find.
you can email me anytime at ask at one B as in boy, P as in perfect, T as in Tom.com. And I can send you the paper. You can also find me on Refrigerator Moms, and I can send it to you that way.
Yeah, well, I'll have the links for all these papers as well in the description. So if you haven't subscribed, by all means, please do. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.